You may be wondering, where's the music? I always felt that applying non-Star Wars music to Star Wars is absolute blasphemy. And because I don't want Disney pulling my video for some weird reason, I'm being extra precautious. So, Star Wars Battlefront 2, 2005. Is there really anything else to say? I feel like the name says it all. Well, actually, a lot needs to be said. Recently, I was browsing some trending stuff on YouTube, and I see that the original, quotation marks, Battlefront 2 is popping up everywhere. Now, this has been happening since the dawn of EA's Battlefront series, but I never clicked on one of these videos. Well, recently I decided to go ahead and watch some. Needless to say, I didn't know Battlefront 2 2005 is so, well, unplayed. Or at least that's how it seems. One YouTuber released a video like a few hours before writing the script, and he said that Battlefront 2 is now available on Steam all of a suddenly, as if it never existed before. I continuously ran into people claiming they were experts, and yet tried to do stuff like capture the command post instead of opposing team ship during a space battle. Now, I'm not trying to be a hipster and claim that I was there first, but this is proof that it's kind of like cool to be that guy who played it before anyone else, and it's kind of like an edgelord thing to be like, yeah, I was there to play the original best one, and that's why I'm making this video. And instead I want to do something a little bit differently. Because that this game seems to be a little bit unknown and that people haven't played it, it needs to be shown. Because when I made CD-ROM files, so I kind of looked through the games that I want to make videos of, and I was thinking, yeah, I probably shouldn't do Battlefront 2 because everybody's played it. I thought it was like Call of Duty. Everybody's at least seen it. But more and more I'm realizing that this game is getting continuously covered up. And it doesn't help that the servers were once brought down, but now it's easier than ever to connect to the multiplayer servers. So as part of Dead and Dying multiplayer, I'm going to talk about the second game for the most part, because I played the crap out of this online. Also, this gives me an excuse to film it, so I'm happy. This is one of my favorite games of all time. It also makes me curious about how many people are aware of Republic Commando, which came out the same year, but that's a whole nother video. So Battlefront 2 did come out in 2005, if you haven't put that together already, and I said in the lockdown video that 2005 was my absolute favorite year for video games. Lockdown came out on consoles in 2005, and boy, is 2005 my favorite year of video games. It was developed by Pandemic, who is now defunct. I talk about them a lot in an upcoming video, so wait till then, but just know that they don't exist anymore. I originally played it on the Xbox alongside its predecessor, which came out the year before. As a kid, I played both interchangeably. It depended on my mood and what I wanted to play. This video will primarily focus on the second one, as this is Dead and Dying multiplayer, and I really never got to play the first one online. So before I dive into the second game, let's get the first one out of the way by explaining some key differences. The first game has no space battles. Instead, TIE fighters and X-Wings spawn on certain maps. There are some unique vehicles, but we won't go over them all. Just know that the first game does have some unique stuff. Like the maps, for example. Dune Sea and Cloud City are my favorite maps that never found their way to the second game. Like, look at this. What an awesome map. When it comes to graphics, I feel like the first one's so much prettier and aesthetically pleasing than the second game. This has always been a matter of preference and debate. I see it on Reddit all the time. The first game is more colorful and the HUD is smaller. The second game is grittier looking and the HUD is much bigger. Also, some claim that the HUD of the second game is more helpful. It boils down to what you want. I mean, it is a war game, so you kind of want grittier graphics. You don't want it to be colorful. It kind of adds to the effect. But sometimes you just, there's people out there that prefer graphics, and so that's kind of the first game. My favorite aspect of the first game, however, is the third factions. On some maps, the third faction is a group that's fighting for their own cause. For example of this is the Tusken Raiders on the Dune Sea. They even have their own command posts. It makes the battles a little bit more intense. In the second game you have the Jawas and the Ewoks, but usually they're either helping one side or just getting in the way. Whether one is better than two is complete opinion. For me, they're not mutually exclusive. For me, if I want, air-land battle in the same match, then I'll play the first game. If I want a more gritty war experience, infantry squad combat, I'll go with the second one. With that out of the way, it's time to dive into Battlefront 2 and talk all about it. And I'm going to be straight with you, Battlefront 2 is mainly known for the Conquest mode. There's a couple other game modes, but Conquest mode is the only one I've ever played online. Think Battlefield Conquest or Call of Duty Domination. You know, you're capturing command posts, which are these beams of light, and once you take control of them, you can spawn there. And when you control the majority of them, it starts draining the other team's tickets or reinforcements, and whoever gets to 0 loses. Killing the enemies also reduce the tickets as well. So you could theoretically win with not as many command posts if you're committing more kills than they're killing your team, if that makes sense. Did I do that well? I don't know. I'm pretty bad at this. Now, the best part about this game and why I love it so much is that it has bot support. Developers, if for some reason you're watching this video, know that I love bot support. I know they're hard to develop and most of the time they don't come out that great, but it makes a game timeless. If I'm in the mood for Battlefront 2 and I do want to play it just for a little bit, I can load it up with bots and sort of have a good time. However, these bots are probably some of the worst I've ever encountered. Playing this game on Elite difficulty is not hard. I rarely die. Rarely. This is because the bots tend to do a Soviet Union strategy. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, the bots are running on sort of like a pathway, like a pre-designed pathway. Like the bots don't have minds of their own, obviously, right? So they kind of travel in a specific path, but they do it in a Soviet Union way. There's a ton of them just charging towards a select area, and sometimes it kind of looks like medieval combat. You just got a bunch of troops on both sides shooting each other at point-blank range. And this makes it easy for a player with a brain to just sit back, have precise aim, and win easily. Taking command posts speed this process up, and sometimes the bots have real difficult of capturing command posts. I think it's a pathing issue. Usually I play with no Jedi or Sith because they are super overpowered. Even in multiplayer, it just boils down to who gets them first. And sometimes the Jedi might be trash compared to the Sith, and next thing you know, the game's over and you can't really do anything about it. Unless you have a squad of veteran players that understand how to take out a Jedi or Sith or whatever type of hero it is, the game will probably end with the introduction of said hero. A lot of people are going to argue with me on this and say that the heroes are really easy to take down, and I would agree with you if I had multiple players who knew what they were doing. One-on-one, it ain't happening. Recently, I played Star Wars Battlefront 2 on public Game Ranger servers. Game Ranger is just a third-party software that is used to host servers on dead games, usually the video games that were supported by GameSpy. And the servers are back. You can kind of play it without this third-party service, but these are like the really, really good servers that have like some, decent mods and have been running for a long time. And I actually didn't have that much difficulty holding my own. In fact, I did pretty well. I mean, that's the story of my life. I'm really good at games that, don't have esports or I can make money in, so of course I'm going to be good at it. But not to boast or anything, but usually when I play Battlefront 2 these days, it's with Matt or some other friends. Typically 1v1 with bots on either side, and I rarely lose. I played so much on Xbox and a modest amount on PC, and I'm not doing this just to flaunt my muscles, but rather I feel like I'm pretty credible when asked the question, is it nostalgia or is it actually good? I hear people all the time say that Battlefront 2 Classic is only good because of nostalgic reasons, and for me, while nostalgia does play a role, I actually didn't really start liking Battlefront as much until I started playing online. But let's dive into it. We'll look at the goods and we'll look at the bads. As I said, the game's mostly known for Conquest mode. Each side has their own unique weapons with some similar classes and some faction-specific ones. Most maps can be played with the Clone War or Galactic Civil War factions. The game doesn't really change depending on what era you choose, except for the vehicles and particular weapons. Some classes are hidden by a score limit. You can bypass this in the server settings, however. Like most class-based shooters, each class has their own purpose. Usually I play as the sharpshooter or the basic rifleman. Gameplay-wise, it is Star Wars Battlefield Edition without the loadouts. If you are a Star Wars fan, you will love this game. The sounds, the vast battlefield, the mod support. There's just so many things that make this game absolutely phenomenal. And in fact, while I've read that some people have had issues, I've never had runtime issues on Windows 10 with the first or second game. Each map is dedicated to a scene straight out of the movies, and it's just great to try to like change history, for lack of a better phrase. When you're playing in a server with real people, or you're playing or you're playing with a good group of friends, it does a good job of feeling like a war. No Star Wars game has ever done that up until this point. When you play this game, you feel like you're this expendable troop in the battlefield, an aspect of Star Wars that you really don't get to see a whole lot. Most of the video games, you're playing as the Jedi or you're playing as some hero, and you really don't have that much difficulties just slaying through thousands and thousands of enemies. But here, it's like a real war experience, but it's Star Wars. So if you're not a Star Wars fan, you're probably not going to like it, unless you're into sci-fi shooters and you can kind of pull away from the Star Wars aspect of it. But now it's time to point out some of the terrible game designs. Some maps are heavily one-sided. This is probably to reflect the movies, but one example is the Battle of Hoth. Unless you work as a team to bring down the AT-ATs, you will most certainly lose. The AT-ATs act as spawn points, so the closer they get to the command posts, the quicker the enemy can spawn in and just flood your command post, and before you know it, you lost it. Not only do they have AT-ATs, but they got AT-STs, so the only way to really bring these down is hope that whoever's flying the snow speeders are really good pilots who have a guy who can shoot the tow cable straight, or you got a bunch of rocket infantry who know what they're doing and can bring it down together. But the worst part is, even if you bring down an AT-AT, it will spawn back eventually. So if your team is trash and you're the rebels, you're losing. A lot of people like to say that the faction balance is also garbage, mainly citing the Droideka and the Bothan Spy. The Droideka can, roll around in a ball and then pop up and shoot and have a shield. And then the Bothan Spy is the guy who goes invisible with an incredibly overpowered flamethrower. And I don't know how I feel about this, because today I don't really have troubles with those particular enemies. I can kind of see the Spy coming, and usually the Spy is not able to take out a large group of people. And the Droidekas, I typically try to just avoid them at all costs, and it usually works. Some of the vehicles are better than others, but it's very hard to notice when playing with bots. When playing with actual players, you will notice that some of the vehicles are kind of bad compared to others. My biggest beef, however, is the bot difficulty. I already mentioned how bad they were, but these bots are pretty brainless and honestly just bad. The worst part, though, is that on some maps they will pilot the vehicles. They will pilot snow speeders and they'll pilot AT-AT and AT-STs. But some maps, like on Kashyyyk or Utapau, they don't get in the tanks. If there's no players there, the vehicles do not get used. But I've seen it sometimes where they actually do get in them. So I don't know. It's really weird. I had to get a mod to fix that. But in the vanilla state, some maps you will never see the AI get in a vehicle. In place of kill streaks, you get upgrades. This is the worst. These upgrades make you ridiculously overpowered. Now when you die, it resets back to 0. But sometimes, like, these power-ups will just make you a tank. Like with the sharpshooter, for example, you kind of have to hit people in the head to one-shot them. But if you stay alive long enough, you get the recharged sharpshooter rifle, whatever it's called, and it will kill mostly everything in one hit, unless it's a Wookiee. It seems that balance is always the main gripe with this game. The graphics are phenomenal. I mean, it's Star Wars. The map design and gameplay are all the great. It's just balance. Anytime I hear somebody complain about this game, it's usually not, I really don't like capturing command posts. It's usually, well, the balance is terrible. Space Battles is a fan favorite of this game, but for me, I don't really like it, but I'm in the minority. For me, they just drag on and on and on. So basically, you have two giant ships, one's yours, one's the enemy's, and you got corvettes in between you that are also part of the battle. Anytime you take out an enemy jet or plane or ship, whatever, that brings down a ticket, but you can also destroy parts of the ship like the shields, the life support, and it brings down the tickets as well. You can actually land inside the opposing ship, and this is where the game does get kind of difficult, because there's auto turrets and because the AI likes to wander around aimlessly. You kind of run into a wall of gunfire, but for the most part, it's really effective to land in the ship and blow stuff up from the inside. However, players will repair these broken parts in multiplayer games. The AI won't do it for some reason, but I've seen it where the ship's shields come down and then back up again because a team of players started to repair it. It's really crazy to see. It is kind of neat, but after playing this game for so long, I still just prefer the ground battles. With nothing modern to take its place, Star Wars Battlefront 2 will always be an amazing game. EA's entry to the series does not compare. I'm not saying they're bad, but with lack of bot support and microtransactions, Pandemic's versions will always be different and better, which is ironic considering EA owned Pandemic at that time. To avoid a few emails and comments, yes, I know DICE and Critteron developed a new Battlefront, but it's easier just to blame it on EA because they're the ones pointing the finger anyway. The multiplayer is slowly dying, peaking every now and again, but for the most part, it's on a steady decline. Make sure you pick it up as soon as you can so you can experience the game in the best way possible, and that's with other players. Sooner or later, I'll be posting a footage of me and Matt playing this game raw on Patreon. Donate $1 to have access to that when it's up. I'm Elijah Moon Blackwell, the founder of CD-ROM Fossil, and this has been Star Wars Battlefront 2 2005. Make sure you check out our website and other social media links all down in the description below. And I'll put links down in the description where you can buy it. It can be bought on Steam and GOG, and just in case you want the disc, I'll post you to a eBay listing. But until then, play some good games, and I will see you in the next episode. Something with a little bit of change of pace, you know, a little bit of a change up. That might help you clue in on what it is. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm gonna go play some Star Wars. Attention all.